I didn't know my parents were going to demand my penthouse at my sister's wedding. If I had, I would have worn better shoes. Instead, I was standing on a raised platform in front of 500 guests, holding a champagne flute that was sweating through my fingers, wearing nude heels that pinched my toes every time I shifted my weight. My sister Lin Ya looked radiant in her custom white gown, her hand resting on her still flat stomach like she was already cradling a trophy. My mother had the microphone. My father stood behind her like a stone wall. And I was the daughter they'd dragged up here for the kill. Linnie, my mother said into the mic, her voice dripping with that practiced public sweetness she only ever used when she wanted something. You're young. You're single. You don't need that giant penthouse all to yourself. The guests murmured. A few turned to look at me. I saw my cousin smirking into her wine glass. Your sister is trying to start a family, my mother continued, gesturing at you like she was displaying a prized heirloom. The penthouse has good feng shui. It's perfect for her. You can just move back home with us. I read at her. Back home. The house I'd left when I was 12, the house where I'd slept on a pull-out couch while you had her own bedroom with a princess canopy. The house where my father used to tell me I was too loud, too much, too hard to love that I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Linnie, my father cut in, his voice low and final. Ya is the older sister. Be reasonable. Reasonable. I'd been reasonable my whole life. I was reasonable when I married Chin Shua 3 years ago and my parents didn't show up because they said he was beneath me. I was reasonable when I paid for their new car. I was reasonable when I bought ya that designer handbag for her birthday, the one I'd saved for months to afford. And now they wanted the penthouse. The one thing grandmother had left me. The one thing that was mine. That I looked down at the champagne in my hand. The bubbles were dying. Everything was dying. And then I looked at Chin Shua. He was standing in the front row of the audience, wearing his best navy suit, the one I'd bought for him last anniversary. He was smiling, nodding along, like he was proud of me. Like he wasn't the reason my stomach had been in knots for the past 4 months. 4 months. That was how long he'd been sleeping with Zhou Yaoyao, the woman in the third row with the serpent necklace and the fake eyelashes. I'd found the receipts. I'd found the hotel bookings. I'd found the text messages he forgot to delete, the ones where he called me, the dumb one, and told Yao Yao he was only staying with me for the money. I didn't say anything. Not when I found them. Not when he came home late smelling like her cheap perfume. Not when he root hiding his phone under his pillow. I waited. Because I knew what was coming. Mom, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. That penthouse was left to me. Grandmother had it notarized and everything. You can't just, your grandmother's old. My mother's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went harrowed. She doesn't know what she's doing. Ya is the eldest. It's tradition. Tradition. I almost laughed. Ya stepped forward, one hand still on her stomach, her expression softening into that martyr's look she'd perfected over 30 years. Linnie, she said, her voice trembling just enough for the audience to hear, I don't want to fight with you. The doctor said I need less stress. The penthouse is closer to my prenatal appointments, and the natural light is better for, it's my house, I said. The design. The layout. The light. I picked every single thing about it. I paid for the renovations myself. You didn't even visit when I moved in. Ya blinked, and a single perfect tear rolled down her cheek. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt the judgment like a physical weight. How do I, the little sister, make the pregnant older sister cry? My father took a step forward, his jaw tight. That's enough. You're rassing this family. I'm rassing the family. My voice cracked on the last word. Chin Shua chose that exact moment to climb onto the platform. He moved smoothly, practiced, like he was born to stand in the spotlight. He took my wrist, his grip was and familiar, and leaned in close. Linnie, please, he whispered. His breath smelled like mint and something else. Something floral. Yao Yao's lip balm, probably. Don't make a scene. Just give them the house. We can rent somewhere else. It's fine. I looked at him. Really looked. At the way his smile didn't reach his eyes. At the faint red mark on his collar that wasn't from my lipstick. At the man who had stood in front of a judge 3 years ago and promised to love me, cherish me, honor me. Chin Shua, I said, and my voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. When did you start sleeping with Zhou Yao Yao? The room went silent. Not the kind of silent where people stop talking and lean in to hear better. The kind of silent where you can hear someone's champagne glass hit the carpet and shatter. Chin Shua's hand tightened on my wrist. His face went pale. What are you talking about? You heard me. I pulled my wrist free. Third row. The woman with the necklace. 4 months. The Regent Hotel. Room 412. Do you want me to keep going? All the blood drained out of his face. Behind me, I heard my mother gasp. Somewhere in the audience, a chair scraped backway road. And then a high, sharp voice cut through the silence like a blade. Liar. Zhou Yao Yao was on her feet. Her champagne had spilled down the front of her silk dress, and she was glaring at me with so much venom that for a second I actually flinched. You're insane, she spat, shoving through the crowd toward the stage. She was shorter than I remembered, but her heels made her taller, and the way she moved had the kind of entitled grace that came from never having to fight for anything in her life. You think you can just make things up because you're jealous? Because you're a boring housewife who doesn't have anything going on except your old lady's apartment? Her words hit me like stones. I could feel them landing, one by one, in my chest. Do you have any idea how pathetic you look right now? Yao Yao kept coming, stopping just short of the platform, jabbing a manicured finger toward me. You ma ride him, fine, but don't pretend you actually expected him to stay faithful. Look at you. You never dress up. You don't wear makeup. You have zero social life. You don't even work, you just sit in that apartment all day drawing pictures like some kind of art school dropout. I felt Chin Shua's eyes on me, pleading. Begging me to stop. To take it back. To be the reasonable one. The penthouse, Yao Yao said, and she laughed now, ugly and bright. You can't even afford the maintenance fees on that place. Do you know how much Chin Shua has spent on me in the past 4 months? I can buy that penthouse. I can buy 10 of them. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're just some sad girl who got lucky with a rich grandmother. My hand was shaking. I put the champagne glass down on the NEA rest table before I dropped it. Zhou Yao Yao, I said, and I heard my voice shift. The tremor was gone. Something colder took its place. What? She crossed her arms, smirking. You know that penthouse, I said slowly, was designed by a woman named Lin Ya. She's the founder of Lin Ya architecture. Yao Yao's smirk didn't falter. Okay. So. I'm Lin Ya. The words landed like stones dropping into still water. Yao Yao's expression froze. Behind her, the murmuring sta root again, this time louder, faster, almost frantic. I heard someone say, Lin Ya architecture, and someone else say, that top 5 firm, and then a third voice, quieter, isn't Lin Ya architecture worth billions? Chin Shua grabbed my arm. His fingers were digging into my skin, hard enough to bruise. Linnie, he hissed, and I could hear the panic in his voice now, the real thing. You don't know what you're doing. Stop this. For months, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, you've been taking money from my company accounts. 12 million yuan in the last 4 months, to be precise. 12 million yuan that went straight into a shell company set up under Zhou Yao Yao's name. You think I didn't notice? You think I didn't track every single transfer? Yao Yao's face went white. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Chin Shua let go of my arm like it had burned him. He stepped back, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for an exit. Linnie, that's not what it looks like. Then what does it look like? I asked. You loving her? You lying to me? You treating me like a payday? The silence stretched. It was broken by a single, sha-rp sound, the click of a cane on marble that I looked past Yao Yao, past Chinshua, past all of them, Tawa Ardi the back of the ballroom. My grandmother was walking down the center aisle, leaning on her ivory-handled stick, her white hair pulled into a tight bun. She was 80 years old, but the way she moved through that crowd was like Moses parting the Red Sea. People actually stepped aside. She reached the stage, climbed the 3 steps one at a time, and took the microphone from my mother's frozen hand. That penthouse, she said, and her voice was thin but clear, was bought with my own money. Every cent. I saved for 40 years, working 3 jobs after my husband died, just so I could leave something behind. Something that would be safe. She looked at me, and something in her eyes softened. Linnie moved in with me when she was 12. Her parents were getting divorced, and they didn't want her. Too difficult, they said. Too emotional. Too much of a handful. Her gaze shifted to my father, who had gone pale. I took her in. I raised her. And she didn't ask for a single thing. Not once. I felt the TRS building behind my eyes. I blinked them back. So when you stand here, my grandmother said, in front of all these people, and demand that she give up the only thing I ever gave her, she stopped. Her voice didn't break. It got stronger. I'll say it once, and I'll say it clearly. Anyone who tries to take that appointment from my granddaughter is no longer my family. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. My father just stood there, his hands clenched at his sides. Yesta root crying again, but this time it wasn't theatrical. This time she was genuinely shaking. And Chinshua looked like a man watching his life burn down in slow motion. He grabbed my hand, his palm sweaty, his fingers trembling. Linnie, please. I'll fix this. I'll break up with her, please don't do this to me. If you love me at all. I pulled my hand free for the 3rd time. I used to love you, I said. But you killed that. You killed it slowly, one lie at a time, and then you buried it under a hotel receipt. He looked at me like I'd stabbed him. Maybe I had. Behind him, I saw Zhou Yao Yao's face crumble as she processed what I just said. 12 million. A shell company. She was going to be investigated. She was going to be dragged into court. All that designer jewelry and the luxury vacations and the expensive hair appointments, gone, all of it, because she picked the wrong housewife to mock. And then the side door opened, and a man walked in. He was tall. Not the kind of tall you noticed in a crowd, but the kind of tall that made you look twice just to be sure. He had sha-rp cheekbones and a RK hair and a navy suit that fit him like it had been painted on. He was carrying a leather folder under his arm, and when he moved through the room, people parut the same way they'd parut for my grandmother. He walked up to the platform, stepped around Chinshua without a second glance, and stopped in front of me. Miss Lin, he said, and his voice was low, calm, achingly familiar. He held out the folder. You asked for these. I took it. I knew what was inside. I'd seen it all before. But this time, it was official. Chinshua grabbed for the folder, but the man blocked him with one arm. No violence, just a flat, immovable ba rire. Chinshua, the man said, and now there was ice in his tone, I wouldn't. Who the hell are you? Chinshua spat. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a ca road. He handed it to Chinshua without looking at him. I watched Chinshua's face as he read it. Saw the color drain from his cheeks a second time. My name is Fu Shizhou, the man said quietly. I'm Ms. Lin's legal counsel. And Mr. Chen, I'll be handling her divorce proceedings. Divorce. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Zhou Yao Yao sta root screaming. My mother was crying. My father's voice boomed across the ballroom, demanding answers. My grandmother just stood there, smiling, actually smiling, as if she'd known this was coming all along. And I stood in the middle of it all, holding a folder full of evidence, wearing nude heels that hurt my feet, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time, that I felt free. Fu Shizhou turned to me, and in that sea of chaos, he was the only calm thing. His eyes met mine, and for a second, the noise faded. You okay? He asked. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Good, he said. Because there's more. I blinked. More? He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell cedar wood and coffee. His breath was warm against my ear. The penthouse. You designed it, right? Yes. There's something you should see. He pulled a single page out of his own pocket, not from the folder, but from his jacket, like he'd been writing it separately. A hidden message. Someone left it on the original blueprint, right under the floor plan. I took the paper, my fingers suddenly unsteady. And there it was. In tiny handwriting I'd never noticed before, tucked inside the architectural lines I'd drawn years ago, were two words that I read at them. My heart stopped. What does it say? Chen Shua was trying to see, but Shizhou stepped between us, blocking his view. Nothing that concerns you, Shizhou said. But I was looking at the words. I was reading them again and again, each time feeling like the floor was tilting under my feet. I looked up at Fu Shizhou. At his steady eyes and his quiet mouth. At the man who had been my university mentor, my business partner, my friend. These words, I whispered. This handwriting. It's not mine. I know, he said. He didn't smile. But something flickered in his gaze, something soft and private. It's mine. The paper crumpled in my hand. The ballroom felt like a pressure cure about to explode. I stood frozen, the crumpled paper in my hand, my brain trying to process what Fu Shizhou had just said. His handwriting. On my blueprint. Hidden under the floor plan of a penthouse I designed 3 years ago, long before he became my investor, long before Chen Shua ever root cheating, long before any of this. You left a message on my architectural drawing, I said slowly, like I was testing the words. Why? Fu Shizhou didn't answer. He just looked at me with those steady dark eyes, and for a moment, the chaos around us seemed to recede. Then Chen Shua shoved past him, his face a mottled mess of fear and fury. What message? What blueprint? Linnie, what is he talking about? I stepped back. None of your business. None of my, Chen Shua's voice cracked. I'm your husband. Not for long, I said. The words hit him like a slap. He recoiled, and I saw something shift in his expression. The panic was still there, but underneath it, a new layer had read. Calculation. He was already trying to figure out how to salvage this. Zhou Yaoyao had stopped screaming. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, her face blotchy from crying, her expensive silk dress stained with champagne. She looked less like a glamorous mistress now and more like a woman who had just realized her house of cards was collapsing. You think you're so clever, she spat, pointing at me with a trembling finger. You think this is over? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Chen Shua has friends, powerful friends, who will make sure you regret ever opening your mouth. I looked at her. Really looked. At the desperation in her eyes, at the way her shoulders were shaking, at the cheap veneer of confidence that was crumbling by the second. Zhou Yaoyao, I said quietly, you just admitted to receiving 12 million yuan in embezzled funds in front of 500 witnesses. I don't think your powerful friends are going to help you. Her face went white. My father finally found his voice. What in God's name is going on here? He was making his way toward me, my mother clinging to his arm. Lin man, you are embarrassing this entire family. You will apologize to your sister and to these guests, and apologize. My grandmother's voice cut through like a blade. She was still standing on the platform, her cane planted firmly on the marble floor. She has nothing to apologize for. She caught a thief and a cheat. If anyone should be apologizing, it's you. For raising a daughter who would steal from her sister. For letting a viper into this house. For treating your own child like she was a burden. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. My grandmother turned to face the crowd. This wedding is over. I suggest everyone leave now, unless you want to witness more family drama. I've provided enough entertainment for one evening. The guests didn't need to be told twice. They sta route streaming tawa rd the exits, some of them still openly sta ring, their phones out, no doubt recording everything. I saw my cousin already on her phone, probably posting about it on social media. I didn't see a re. Let them talk. Let them spread the story. I was done hiding. Ya had collapsed onto a chair near the stage. She was sobbing into her bouquet, her perfect wedding makeup melting into streaks of black mascara. Her new husband, some finance guy my parents had approved of, was standing beside her, looking helpless. That I walked over to her. She flinched when she saw me coming, like she expected me to hit her. Yeah, I said. I'm not going to hurt you. She looked up at me through her ruined mascara. You hate me. You've always hated me. I don't hate you, I said, and I surprised myself by meaning it. I just don't trust you. And I'm not giving you the penthouse. But I also don't want to see you cry on what's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. She sniffled. I didn't know about the money. I swear. I didn't know Chinshua was stealing from you. I believe you, I said. Because I did. Ya had always been self-absorbed, but she wasn't conniving. She was just weak. Weak enough to go along with whatever our parents wanted, weak enough to believe she was entitled to things she hadn't worked for, but not evil. Not like Chinshua. That doesn't change anything, I continued, keeping my voice level. The penthouse is mine. It's always going to be mine. But if you need help finding a different apartment, something with good light and close to your prenatal appointments, I can help you look. As long as you stop pretending you're entitled to things that don't belong to you. Ya sta read at me. A fresh wave of TRS spilled down her cheeks. You do that after everything. Don't make me regret it, I said. That I turned away from her and walked back Tawa RD Fushijo. Chinshua was gone. I spotted him slipping out through the side door, his phone pressed to his EAR, probably calling his lawyer. Or his mistress. Or both. Zhou Yaoyao was being escorted out by security, still yelling threats over her shoulder. My parents were huddled together near the entrance, talking in urgent whispers. My mother kept shooting glances at me, her expression a mixture of fury and something that looked almost like fear. She'd never been afraid of me before. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. And then there was Fu Shizhou. Still standing exactly where I'd left him, still calm, still steady. He'd shoved his hands into his pockets and was watching the chaos with an expression of mild interest, like he was observing a fascinating nature documentary. Are you okay? He asked again. Define okay, I said. I just blew up my sister's wedding, exposed my husband as a cheater and a thief, told my parents off in front of 500 people, and discovered that my investor has been secretly writing messages on my architectural drawings for 3 years. I'm not sure okay is the right word. The corner of his mouth twitched. Fair point. Why? I asked. The question came out rougher than I intended. Why did you leave that message? He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes sea urching mine. Then he reached out and gently took the crumpled paper from my hand. He smoothed it out on his palm, carefully, reverently, and held it up so I could read the words again. Look closer, he said. That I leaned in. The handwriting was small, almost microscopic, tucked into a corner of the blueprint where the floor plan met the west wall. I'd drawn the west wall myself, marked it with the dimensions for the floor-to-ceiling windows that would overlook the city. But I'd never noticed the tiny curl of script wedged between my own architectural notations. 2 words, looped together in blue ink. Stay here. I blinked. Stay here, that's what it says. Yes. Why would you write that? He folded the paper carefully and tucked it back into his jacket pocket. Because when you first showed me that blueprint, I knew what you were planning. You were going to design the penthouse, sell it, take the money, and disappear. You were going to run away from your family, from your mariage, from everything. Ista read at him. How did you know that? Because I knew you, he said simply. I've known you since you were 19 years old, sitting in my architecture theory class, taking notes so furiously you'd break 3 pencils in a single lecture. I watched you design your first building, win your first competition, start your first company. I saw how hard you worked, and I also saw how tired you were. How much you wanted to give up. My throat tightened. That was a long time ago. It was 3 years ago. You were 27, you just married Chinshua, your parents still didn't acknowledge you, and you were about to sign a contract to sell the only thing you'd ever created that was truly yours. He shook his head. I saw that blueprint and I thought, if she sells this, she's going to regret it forever. So I wrote a note. Just in case you ever found it. Just in case you ever needed to remember that there was a place where you could stay. I couldn't breathe. The ballroom was emptying around us, the lights sta rooting to dim, the staff already beginning to clear the tables. But I couldn't move. I was anchored to the spot, pinned down by those 2 words and the weight of what they meant. You wrote it without telling me, I said. You just left it there. For 3 years. I didn't know if you'd ever see it, he admitted. I didn't even know if I'd ever see you again. You disappeared after the wedding. Went quiet on the business stuff. I figured you'd sold the penthouse and moved on, like you said you were going to. I didn't sell it, I whispered. I couldn't. I kept telling myself I was waiting for the market to improve, but really I think I was just waiting for something I didn't know how to name. Fu Shizhou studied me. The lights from the chandeliers caught the angles of his face, the sharp planes of his cheekbones, the soft curve of his mouth. He was so familiar to me, this man I'd known for a decade, and yet at this moment, he felt like a stranger. A stranger who had been watching me from the shadows, keeping my secrets, saving my things. Linnie, he said, and his voice was different now. Softer. Almost hesitant. There's something else. When I wrote that note, I wasn't just trying to save your building. I was trying to save you. The air between us crackled with something unspoken. Shizhou, Ista root, but he held up a hand. I'm not saying this to pressure you. You're still legally married, even if you filed for divorce tonight. And you've got a lot of things to sort out, the company, your family, all of it. I'm not asking for anything. He looked at me with those steady eyes. I'm just telling you the truth. Because you've been lied to enough tonight. I didn't know what to say. I'd spent the last 4 months feeling so invisible, so worthless, so completely erased by Chinshua's betrayal that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. To be wanted for something other than what I could provide. Thank you, I managed. For the note. For saving the building. For all of it. You don't have to thank me. He took a step back, putting a little distance between us, and the air returned to something almost normal. But you do have to eat. You haven't had anything since this morning, and I know you. I wanted to argue, but my stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. He laughed, a low, quiet sound that I'd only heard a handful of times before. Come on, he said. I know a place. It's not fancy, but it's open late, and they make the best noodles in the city. I hesitated. I can't just, you can, actually. He pulled out his phone. I just called your lawyer. The divorce papers are being filed tomorrow morning. Chinshua's accounts are frozen. Zhou Yaoyao's company is under investigation. Your parents are going to be dealing with a PR nightmare for the next 6 months. He pocketed the phone. Everything that can be done tonight has been done. The rest can wait until morning. I looked around the empty ballroom. The staff were already vacuuming the carpets, and I could see the sad remains of the wedding cake on the dessert table. Somewhere outside, I could hear the distant sound of CARSSTA rooting, guests heading home to gossip about the disaster they just witnessed. So this is it, I said. This is my life now. This is your life, he tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. Linnie, this is just the beginning. We walked out together through the side door, past the security guards who nodded at us like we were important, past the caterers who were packing up the leftover champagne. The night air hit me like a shock, CL and clean, washing away the stale RMTH of the ballroom. What's the place called? I asked up old Chen's noodle house. It's a hole in the wall, but the owner's been making noodles for 40 years. He used to feed me when I was a broke law student. Broke law student. I shook my head. You were never broke. No, he admitted, but I wanted him to think I was so he'd keep giving me free soup. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd let out all night, and it surprised me. It surprised him too. I saw the way his eyes lit up, just for a second, before he looked away. We walked in silence through the quiet streets. The wedding venue was on a hill, and the neighborhood below was all narrow alleys and old buildings, the kind of place that would never appear in a travel brochure but had its own quiet beauty. Shizhou, I said, as we turned onto a street lined with small shops. What are you really doing here? He glanced at me. Eating noodles. That's not what I meant. He stopped walking. The street was empty except for a stray cat that was watching us from a doorway. The sign for the noodle house was just ahead, its red lanterns casting a warm glow onto the pavement. What I'm doing here, he said slowly, is exactly what I've been doing for the past 10 years. I'm standing beside you while you fight battles that shouldn't have been yours to fight. And I'll keep standing there as long as you let me. I swallowed hard. That's a long time to stand next to someone. I know, he said. He didn't look away. I've got practice. The cat meowed, breaking the moment, and he laughed. Come on. The noodles are better when they're fresh. He pushed open the door to the noodle house, and a bell chimed overhead. The place was exactly what he described, small, worn out, smelling of sesame oil and relic. The old man behind the counter looked up and broke into a wide grin when he saw Shizhou. Little Fu. Long time no see. Old Chen. Shizhou walked up to the counter and shook his hand. 2 bowls of your specialty. And extra chili. The old man looked at me, his eyes sharp despite his age. Your girl, she's a friend, Shizhou said. She had a rough night. Old Chen grunted, like he didn't quite believe the friend, but he didn't push. He just nodded and Desape read into the kitchen, where I could hear the sound of boiling water and the rhythmic slap of dough being kneaded. We sat down at a small table near the window. The street was dark outside, but inside, the warm yellow light made everything feel softer. Safer. Shizhou, I said, the message. Stay here. Did you really think I was going to leave? I thought you might, he said. You were unhappy. You were alone. You had the money and the resources to start over somewhere else. A lot of people would have done exactly that. Where would I have gone? I don't know. Somewhere far away. Somewhere where no one knew you as the difficult daughter or the disappointing wife. He pushed a bowl of peanuts across the table toward me. But I also knew that if you stayed, you could build something. Something real. I took a peanut, cracked it open. Did you ever think about leaving all the time? He said. But I kept coming back to the same reason to stay. What reason? He looked at me, and for a moment, the mask slipped. I saw something raw and unguided in his expression, something that made my chest ache. Linnie, he said, it was you. It was always you. The words hung in the air between us. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond to a confession I'd been waiting to hear for 10 years, one I'd convinced myself I'd imagined. You're serious, I said. Dead serious. I'm not. I stopped, tried again. I'm not the person I was 3 years ago. I'm not even the person I was this morning. Good, he said. Neither am I. Old Chen Ape read with 2 steaming bowls of noodles, setting them down with a flourish. Eat, eat, he said, gesturing at us with his ladle. No talking. Noodles first. Shizhou picked up his chopsticks. He's the boss. I picked up mine too, and for a while, we just ate. The noodles were perfect, chewy and rich, swimming in a broth that tasted like comfort. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until the first bite hit my tongue. This is good, I said, around a mouthful that I told you. We finished our noodles in companionable silence. When the bowls were empty, Shizhou paid. I tried to argue, but he just shook his head and said, investor perks, and we walked back out into the night. The streets were even emptier now, the lanterns in the noodle house window flickering as old Chen began closing up. Where are you staying tonight? Shizhou asked. I opened my mouth to say, home, but I stopped. The penthouse. Chen Shua had a key. He might be there. He might be waiting. I don't know, I admitted. Shizhou nodded, like he'd expected that answer. My place. You can take the guest room. I'll sleep on the couch. Shizhou, I can't just, you can, actually. He stopped walking and turned to face me. You don't have to figure everything out tonight. You don't have to decide anything right now. But I'm not going to let you go back to a place where he could find you. Not tonight. I wanted to argue. I wanted to prove that I could handle this on my own, that I didn't need anyone's help. But the truth was, I was exhausted. I was running on empty, and the thought of sleeping somewhere safe, somewhere where I didn't have to be en garde, was almost irresistible. Fine, I said. But I'm taking the couch. You're not. I'm short. You're tall. It's practical. He sighed. You always do this. Do what? Argue until you get your way. I smiled, and it felt strange on my face. I learned from the best. You learned from yourself, he said. You were always this stubborn. We sta route walking again, and I fell into step beside him. The city was quiet now, the kind of quiet that only happens in the early hours of the morning. I pulled my jacket tighter around my shoulders. Shizhou, I said, thank you. For everything. For tonight, for the note, for you don't have to thank me, he said. Just promise me one thing. What? He looked at me. Stay. I didn't ask him what he meant. I didn't need to. I just looked back at him, at the man who had stood in the shadows for a decade, waiting, watching, believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Okay, I said. I'll stay. He didn't smile. But something in his eyes softened, and that was enough. I woke up on Fu Shizhou's couch at 6 in the morning with a crick in my neck and the smell of coffee drifting in from the kitchen. For a solid 30 seconds, I had no idea where I was. The ceiling was wrong, too high, too white, with a modern light fixture I'd never seen before. The blanket was wrong too, soft and heavy, like something that cost more than my first car. And the pillow, I sat up so fast I nearly fell off the couch. The pillow smelled like him. Cedar wood and coffee and something clean underneath. I'd been sleeping on his pillow. On his couch. In his APA it meant that I pressed my palm to my forehead and tried to remember the night before. The wedding. The confrontation. The noodles. The walk through the empty streets. And then, coming here, arguing about who would take the couch, him finally giving in but only after he'd brought out 3 extra blankets and a glass of water for my nightstand. Nightstand, I muttered to myself. He gave me the master bedroom. I refused. He brought the blankets to the couch anyway. I looked down at the pile of blankets. He'd tucked them around me while I was pretending to be asleep. I'd felt his fingers brush my shoulder, light and refill, like he was afraid of waking me. The coffee smell got stronger, and I heard footsteps at the good morning. I looked up. Fu Shizhou was standing in the kitchen doorway, wearing a plain white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair was sticking up in the back, and there was a faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. He looked like he'd just rolled out of bed, which was probably accurate, considering he'd slept on the floor of his own study because I'd refused to let him have the couch. "Morning," I said, my voice hoarse. "What time is it?" 6:15. "I made coffee. There's also toast, but I can't promise it's good. I'm better at architecture than King." I swung my legs off the couch and stood up, still wrapped in one of the blankets. My dress from last night was wrinkled beyond saving, and my hair felt like a bird's nest, but I didn't see a re. I was too tired to see a re. "Thank you," I said. "For letting me stay." "You don't have to keep thanking me." "I know. I stopped. It's weird. Waking up somewhere that isn't my place. Waking up and not having to brace myself." He didn't say anything to that. He just turned back to the kitchen and poured 2 mugs of coffee. I shuffled over, still wrapped in the blanket, and took the mug he handed me. It was exactly how I liked it. "A splash of milk, no sugar." You remembered," I said. "I remember a lot of things." I took a sip. The coffee was hot and perfect. I felt something in my chest loosen, just a little. "Your lawyer called," Shijo said, pulling out his phone. "The divorce papers are ready. Chinshua's been served. He's contesting some of the financial stuff, but your lawyer says you have him dead to rights on the embezzlement. He's not going to win." That was fast. I made some calls. He shrugged. "I have connections." I took another sip of coffee. "You always have connections. Perks of being a law school dropout who sta root an investment firm. You're not a dropout. You finished. You just didn't take the BAR exam. Same difference." I laughed, and it felt good. The sound surprised me. It came out easier than it had in months. "Maybe stuck." "What else?" I asked. "Anything from my parents." "Your mother left 3 voicemails. Your father left 1. Your sister left none." He paused. "Your grandmother sent a text. She says she's proud of you." My eyes stung. I blinked. "How road?" "She texted you. She asked for my number last night." I gave it to her. He looked at me, something soft in his expression. "She said to tell you that you're not alone. And that she's got a fresh batch of dumplings waiting whenever you're ready to come over." I put the coffee mug down and pressed my palms against my eyes. "I'm not going to cry." "You're allowed to cry." "I'm not." He didn't push. He just stood there, sipping his coffee, giving me space. That I took a breath. "Let it out." Another breath. "Okay," I said, when I could speak again. "What's the plan?" "The plan is you take a shower, I find you some clothes that fit, and we go to your office. You've got a meeting with your project team at 9, and your legal team at 11. Then we deal with the financial stuff in the afternoon." The office. I'd almost forgotten. My company. My designs. The life I'd built outside of the wedding and the mess that. "It's still there," Shijo said, like he could read my thoughts. "It's been there. You built something real, Linnie. That doesn't disappear because of one bad night." "One bad night," I repeated. "That's one way to put it." He set his coffee down and looked at me, straight on. "You took a stand. You told the truth. You walked away from a situation that was killing you slowly. That's not a bad night. That's a victory." I wanted to argue. I wanted to point out all the ways it could still go wrong, the legal battles, the family fallout, the social media gossip that was probably already spreading like wildfire. But looking at him, I realized something. He wasn't going to let me spiral. He was going to keep showing up, keep saying the things I needed to hear, until I believed them. "Okay," I said. "Victory. I can work with that." He smiled. It was a small smile, a curve at the corner of his mouth, but it was real. The shower was quick, 5 minutes under hot water that did more to wake me up than the coffee. Shizhou had left a stack of clothes on the bathroom counter, a pair of black trousers that were way too expensive, a cream-colored blouse that looked unworn, and a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. There was a note on top that borrowed these from my sister's emergency stash. She's your size. Don't ask where she keeps them. I laughed and put them on. They fit perfectly. Shizhou was waiting in the living room, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked like it had been tailored specifically for him. He was scrolling through his phone, but he looked up when I walked in. Good, he said. You look like you again. Your sister has expensive taste. She has expensive everything. It's a problem. He pocketed the phone. Ready as I'll ever be. We took his car, the black Audi from the night before, and drove through the city Tower RD, the business district. The sun was fully up now, and the streets were filling with people heading to work. Normal people. Normal days. Normal lives. I didn't feel normal. I felt like I was floating in a strange bubble where everything was simultaneously falling apart and coming together. You're thinking too loud, Shizhou said, keeping his eyes on the road. Sorry. Don't apologize. Just try to breathe. You've got this. I know I've got this. That's not the problem. What is the problem? I leaned my head against the window. I don't know who I am anymore. I was Lin Man, the architect. Then I was Mrs. Chen, the wife. Then I was Lin Man, the business owner. Then I was, I don't know, the woman whose husband cheated on her. And now I'm all of it at once, and I don't know which version I'm supposed to be. Shizhou was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured. Ca refilled it. You're all of them, he said. You don't have to choose. The architect, the wife, the business owner, the woman who survived. They're all parts of you. The question is which part you want to lead with. I don't know, I admitted. Good. You don't have to know yet. Just be here, right now. The rest will follow. We pulled up to my office building. It was a glass tower in the middle of the financial district, modest by the standards of the city, but mine. Mine. I'd built it from nothing, one design at a time. The doors slid open. The lobby was sleek, modern, full of people in business attire moving with purpose. It felt worlds away from the wedding venue, the chaos, the screaming. My office is on the 15th floor, I said, as we walked Tower RD the elevator. My team is probably already there. They're waiting for you, Shizhou said. They've been waiting for you to come back. I looked at him. What do you mean? He pressed the elevator button. 3 weeks ago, you stopped coming in. You stopped answering emails. You stopped taking calls. They were worried. I told them you were dealing with personal stuff, but they knew something was wrong. 3 weeks ago. That was when I'd found the hotel receipts. When I'd sta route planning. When I'd become a ghost in my own life. I didn't know they'd notice, I said. Linnie. He turned to face me. You're the founder. You're the heart of that company. Of course they noticed. The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside, and I pressed the button for the 15th floor. Is this too much? I asked. Coming back like nothing happened. You didn't come back like nothing happened. You came back because you're ready to handle it. He looked at me. That's different. The elevator climbed. I counted the floors as they passed, letting the rhythm steady me. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, I stepped out into the open plan office. My team was there, 7 people around a large table, poring over blueprints and coffee cups. They looked up when I walked in. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my lead designer, a young woman named May, stood up. Boss, she said, her voice shaky. You're back. I'm back, I said. Sorry I've been. She crossed the room and hugged me. It was sudden and unexpected, and I felt my throat close up. We thought you'd left, she said into my shoulder. We thought you'd sold the company and moved away. I almost did, I admitted. But I changed my mind. The other team members gathered around, asking questions, telling me about the projects they'd been working on, showing me the latest designs. It was chaotic and loud and overwhelming, and I loved every second of it. Shizhou hung back by the entrance, watching with a faint smile on his face. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there, letting me have this moment. I made my way to the table and looked at the blueprints spread out across it. A new residential complex. A project I'd sta route before everything fell apart. These are good, I said. Really good. But the west-facing windows need more light. Residential buyers always want more light. We were waiting for you to say that, May said. We weren't sure if we should make the change. Make it, I said. And add a green roof. They'll pay extra for a green roof. The meeting went on for 2 hours. I fell back into the rhythm of it, the give and take of design, the arguments over materials, the excitement of a new project coming together. It was familiar and grounding and exactly what I needed. When the meeting ended, Shizhou was still there, leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets. The legal team is in conference room B, he said. Ready. The legal meeting was less enjoyable but necessary. We went through the divorce papers, the embezzlement charges, the freeze on Chinshua's accounts. My lawyer was a Sha RP woman named Wang, who spoke in rapid-fire sentences and didn't let me interrupt. Chinshua is trying to claim the business is marital property, she said. Which is ridiculous, since you sta root the company before you married him, and he was never an employee. He's also claiming that the penthouse belongs to the mariage, but your grandmother's notarized document makes that impossible. Can he drag this out? Probably. He's desperate. Wang shrugged. But desperate people make mistakes. And he's already made a lot of them. What about Zhou Yaoyao? Her company is being audited. She's facing charges of receiving stolen property. She's not going to be a problem for much longer. I nodded. Good. Shizhou was quiet through the meeting, but I could feel his presence beside me, steady and calm. He didn't take over. He just listened, watched, supported. When the meeting ended, he walked me back to my office. You're handling this well, he said. I'm pretending to handle it well. There's a difference. Pretending is the first step. I sat down at my desk, which was covered in papers and sketches and half-finished designs. It felt like coming home. Shizhou, I said, can I ask you something? Anything? Why didn't you tell me about the note all those years ago, when I showed you the blueprint? Why didn't you just say something? He was quiet for a long time. He walked to the window and looked out at the city, his back to me. Because I wasn't sure if you were ready to hear it, he said. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to say it. To say what? He turned around. To say that I've been in love with you for a decade. That I watched you marry someone else and I didn't say anything. That I kept showing up, kept investing in your company, kept being your friend, because it was the only way I could stay in your life. I felt the air leave my lungs. Shizhou, you don't have to say anything back, he said quickly. I told you last night, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you the truth because you deserve to know it. I don't know what to say, I admitted. I've spent so long being someone's wife that I don't even remember how to be just me. And I don't know if I'm ready to be something else for someone else. That's fine. He walked back toward the desk. I'm not going anywhere. I've been waiting this long. I can wait a little longer. You don't have to wait. I know. He smiled. I want to. My phone buzzed on the desk. I looked at it. A text from my grandmother. Dumplings are ready. Come whenever you're free. Bring the boy. ISTA read at the message. She called you the boy. What? I turned the phone around so he could see it. He read the message and laughed, a real laugh, and surprised. Your grandmother has a sense of humor, he said. She's always liked you, I admitted. Even when I was married to Chinshua, she used to ask about you. Asked why we weren't together. What did you tell her? I looked at him. I told her you were just a friend. Ouch. I didn't know. I pushed my hair back from my face. I didn't know how you felt. I didn't know how I felt. I was too busy being someone else's version of me. And now I'm trying to figure out what the real version looks like. He nodded. Okay. That's fair. Another buzz. This time, it was my mother. Come home. We need to talk. ISTA read at the message. My mother wants me to come over. Do you want to go? No. Then don't. Just like that, just like that. He said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. You don't owe them anything. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify the choices you've made. You can just say no. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I put the phone down. No, I said. Good. I'm going to go see my grandmother. And I'm going to eat dumplings. And then I'm going to come back here and finish this design. Can I come? He asked. For the dumplings, I looked at him. At this man who had waited 10 years. Who had left me notes on blueprints. Who had shown up at a wedding with evidence in a folder and a promise in his eyes. I think my grandmother would be disappointed if you didn't, I said. He smiled. And for the first time in a very long time, I smiled back without hesitation. My grandmother lived in a small house at the edge of the old city, tucked between a laundromat and a convenience store that had been there since before I was born. The paint on the front door was peeling, and the garden out front was overgrown with wildflowers that she refused to let anyone trim because she said they reminded her of my grandfather. I hadn't been here in 6 months. Every time I thought about coming, something got in the way. Chinshua's schedule. My parents' demands. The endless noise of a life I'd built around other people's needs. Today, the door swung open before I could knock. There you are, my grandmother said. She was wearing her favorite floral apron, the one with the faded roses, and she had flour dusted across her cheekbones. I was rooting to think you'd forgotten the way. I could never forget the way, I said, and I meant it. She looked past me at Fu Shizhou, who was standing a few steps back, holding a bottle of wine he'd insisted on buying on the way over. Her eyes narrowed appraisingly. So, she said. You're the boy. Ma'am. Shizhou inclined his head. Thank you for having me. You're taller than I remember. She stepped aside to let us in. And you brought wine. Good man. Come in, come in. The dumplings are almost done. Her house was exactly the way I remembered it. Cluttered and cozy, every surface covered in knickknacks and photographs and half-finished crossword puzzles. The kitchen smelled like ginger and garlic and something sweet baking in the oven. It smelled like safety. I sat down at the small table by the window, and Shizhou sat across from me. My grandmother moved around the kitchen with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times, her hands steady as she filled a bamboo steamer with dumplings. So, she said, not turning around. You had quite the night. You could say that. I heard about it from Mrs. Li down the street. She was at the wedding. My grandmother's voice was dry. Apparently, her daughter's been posting about it on that internet thing all morning. Social media, I said. Yes, that. She showed me the videos. She turned and fixed me with a look. You handled yourself well. Thank you. Your mother called me, by the way. 3 times. She wanted me to talk you into dropping the cha ridges against that worthless husband of yours. What did you say? I told her I was too busy making dumplings. My grandmother shrugged. She hung up on me. I didn't mind. Shizhou let out a quiet laugh. My grandmother's eyes flicked to him, and I saw something in her expression soften. You've got good taste, she said to me. This one's better than the last. Grandma. I'm just saying. She set the steamer on the table and sat down in the chair next to me. You were never happy with Chinshua. I saw it every time you came to visit. The way you held yourself. The way you looked at him. Like you were waiting for something to happen. I didn't want to admit it, I said. I thought if I tried hard enough, I could make it work. You tried harder than anyone should have to. She reached over and patted my hand. But you're done now. You're free. I looked at her weathered face, at the kindness in her eyes, and felt TRS prick at my own. I don't know how to be free, I admitted. I've been so used to being controlled by other people's expectations that I don't even know what I want anymore. Bullshit, my grandmother said. You know exactly what you want. You've always known. You just need to give yourself permission to have it. I blinked. That's surprisingly blunt. I'm too old to be anything but blunt. She picked up her chopsticks and gestured at the dumplings. Eat. You need strength. The hard part isn't over yet. Hard part, your mother called the newspaper, she said. Tried to spin the story. Told them you were having a mental breakdown and making up lies about your husband. Said you were jealous of your sister and you'd always been difficult. I felt my stomach drop. What the newspaper called me looking for a comment. I told them the truth. My grandmother's smile was sharp as a knife. I said you were a self-made businesswoman whose husband stole 12 million yuan and spent it on a mistress. I said your mother was so embarrassed that she was trying to cover it up by ring her own daughter. I said your father had never forgiven you for being ruder than him. You didn't, I whispered. I did. She picked up a dumpling with her chopsticks. I also mentioned that you designed the penthouse yourself, and that your parents had never visited you once in the 5 years you'd lived there. The reporter was very interested in that. Shizhou was staring at my grandmother with something like awe. Ma'am, you have a gift. Comes with age. She bit into the dumpling, chewed thoughtfully, and nodded. The reporter is doing a follow-up piece. They're going to publish it tomorrow. I put my head in my hands. This is insane. No, my grandmother said calmly. This is justice. You've been quiet for too long. You've let them walk all over you because you wanted to keep the peace. But there's no peace to keep. They were never going to be happy with you, no matter what you did. So you might as well tell the truth. I lifted my head. What about you? She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't stop them, my grandmother said. She let them use her as the excuse. She's complicit in her own way. But I didn't say anything about her. Just your parents and that snake you married. Shizhou reached over and touched my wrist. Linnie. The news is going to break eventually. It's better if it breaks on your terms. He's right, my grandmother said. You've been running away from these people for your whole life. Stop running. Stand your ground. I looked between them, the two people who had been in my corner when no one else was. The two people who had never asked me to be anything other than myself. Okay, I said. I'll stand. Good. My grandmother pushed the steamer closer. Now eat. I made too many. We ate until we were full, talking about nothing and everything. My grandmother told Shizhou stories about me as a child, how I used to draw on the walls with crayons, how I demanded to see the blueprints for my elementary school when I was 8, how I'd built an entire miniature city out of toothpicks and glue when I was 12. You broke the toothpick city, I said, horrified that I broke it, my grandmother admitted. But only because you'd used up all my toothpicks and I needed to stir a pot. You rebuilt it the next day. Bigger and better. Shizhou laughed. That sounds like her. It was always her, my grandmother said. She never let anything stop her. She just needed to remember that. When we finally stood to leave, my grandmother pulled me aside. Shizhou stepped out to the porch to give us privacy. Linnie, she said, her voice low, I'm proud of you. I know I've said it before, but I need you to hear it. You've been through a lot. And you're still standing. That takes something. I had you, I said. You were always there. I won't always be, she said, and the words hit me harder than I expected. But you will. And you'll be fine. Don't talk like that. I'm old. I can talk however I want. She squeezed my hands. There's something else. About that young man. What about him? He loves you. I can see it. She looked at me, sharp and knowing. Don't waste time being afraid. You've wasted enough. I wanted to argue. But I couldn't. Because she was right. Shijo was waiting by the car, hands in his pockets, looking out at the quiet street. When I walked up to him, he turned. Everything okay? Yeah. I took a breath. She said you love me. He didn't flinch. She's not wrong. I know. I opened the car door. Let's go. We drove back to the office in silence. The city was waking up to its afternoon rhythm, people rushing, honking, moving with purpose. I watched it all through the window, feeling disconnected and connected at the same time. When we pulled up to the office building, there was a crowd outside. Journalists, cameras, microphones. My mother must have really gone all out. Shijo looked at them, then at me. We can go in through the back. No, I said. I'm done hiding. I got out of the car and walked toward the crowd. Shijo was at my side in an instant, his hand on my elbow, steadying me. A reporter spotted me first. Ms. Lin. Ms. Lin, what's your response to your mother's claims? I stopped. The cameras clicked and flashed. I felt Shijo tense beside me, but I held up a hand to let him know I was okay. My response, I said, looking directly into the nearest camera, is that I'm filing for divorce from Chinshua on grounds of fraud and adultery. I have all the evidence. It's been turned over to the authorities. The reporters erupted with more questions. My father's business. My sister's wedding. The penthouse. The money. The penthouse is mine, I said. It was left to me by my grandmother. It was designed by me. It belongs to me. No one is going to take it. And your pa rents, someone shouted. They'll have to live with the consequences of their choices. I turned away from the cameras. I have a company to run. If you want to know more, my legal team will be handling all media inquiries from now on. Shijo opened the office door for me. I walked through it and didn't look back. The elevator ride to the 15th floor was quiet. When the doors opened, my team was waiting, not in the conference room, but in the hallway, lining both sides like they were welcoming me home. May stepped forward. Road, boss. We saw the news. She stopped. We're on your side. Whatever you need. I looked at their faces. These people who had kept my company running while I was drowning in my own life. These people who had believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you, I said. I don't deserve you. You do, May said firmly. Now go do the thing you're best at. Show them what you can build. I walked to my desk and sat down. Shijo sat across from me, his hands folded on the table. You handled that well, he said. I had practice. What now? I pulled a blank piece of paper toward me. Now I draw. I know what you meant. I picked up a pencil. But right now, I need to do this. I need to build something. Something new. Something that's mine. He nodded. Okay. I drew for hours. The penthouse was finished, but it was just a STA rooting point. I wanted to design something bigger, better, something that would make people stop and see the world differently. Shijo stayed in the room with me, quiet and present. Every now and then he'd get up to refill my coffee or bring me a snack from the office kitchen. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer advice. He just stayed. At 7 o'clock, I set down my pencil and looked at what I'd drawn. It was a residential complex, curved and elegant, with a green rooftop garden and floor-to-ceiling windows that faced the sunset. Beautiful, Shijo said, not finished yet. Neither are you, he said. But you're on your way. I looked at him. At his steady eyes and calm presence. At the man who had waited 10 years. Shijo, I said, my grandmother told me not to waste time being afraid. She's smart. She is. I pushed my chair back and stood up. I've spent my whole life afraid. Afraid of disappointing my parents. Afraid of failing. Afraid of being alone. And you know what, I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm not afraid anymore. He stood up too. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm not ready to be with anyone. Not yet. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's victim. I need to rebuild myself. He nodded. I understand. But I also need you to know, I continued, that when I am ready, if you're still willing, I want it to be you. He was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, slow and Linnie, he said, I've been willing for 10 years. I think I can wait a little longer. I didn't kiss him. I wanted to, but I wasn't there yet. Instead, I reached out and took his hand. Thank you, I said. For what? For staying. He squeezed my hand. Always. 6 months later, I stood in the middle of my penthouse and watched the sunset paint the city gold. The space was different now. I'd changed things, moved the furniture, added new artwork, replaced the windows with the ones I'd always wanted but never had the budget for. It felt like mine in a way it hadn't before. Like I'd finally grown into the skin of it. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Chen Shua was in the middle of a criminal investigation that would likely end with him in prison for a few years. Zhou Yaoyao had fled the country. I'd heard through the grapevine that she was somewhere in Southeast Asia, trying to rebuild her life with the small fortune she'd managed to hide before the freeze. Good luck to her. She'd need it. My parents had gone quiet. The newspaper article my grandmother orchestrated had done its work. Public opinion had turned against them so completely that they'd stopped answering their phone. My mother had sent me one text, a long, rambling apology that felt more like a performance than genuine regret, and I hadn't responded. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't sure I ever would be. But Ye had reached out. We'd had coffee twice, awkward and stilted, but slowly getting better. She was still pregnant, due in another 3 months. We'd agreed to keep things civil, for the baby's sake. It wasn't a reconciliation, not really, but it was a start. My grandmother was still the same. Sharp-tongued and fierce and always in my corner. I visited her every Sunday, and she still made dumplings and told me I was too skinny and asked about the boy. The boy. Fu Shizhou. We'd been in a strange, beautiful space for the past 6 months. Not dating, not dating. Just, present. He'd been there through the legal battles, the late nights at the office, the moments when everything felt too heavy and I wanted to give up. He'd never pushed. He'd never asked for more than I could give. And slowly, without me even noticing, I'd root to heal. Tonight was different. Tonight, I'd asked him to come over. I'd told him to dress nicely, which had made him raise an eyebrow, but he'd agreed without question. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. I took a breath, smoothed down the dress I'd bought for the occasion, simple, dark blue, the kind of dress that made me feel like myself, and opened the door. Shizhou stood in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine and a small bouquet of white flowers. He was wearing a navy suit, his hair slightly mussed from the wind, and he looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. You cleaned up, he said. You too. He handed me the flowers. These are for you. White peonies. I remembered you said they were your favorite. I took them, feeling something bloom in my chest. You remembered. I remember everything. He stepped inside, and I closed the door behind him. The penthouse was lit with candles, dozens of them, flickering on every surface. I'd spent the afternoon setting them up, along with a small table by the window with 2 plates and real silverware. I'd ked. Well, I tried to CK. The pasta was probably a little overcooked, but it was the effort that counted. Linnie, Shijo said, looking around. What's all this? I wanted to thank you, I said. For everything. For the past 6 months. For the past 10 years, actually. He turned to look at me, his expression unreadable. You don't have to thank me. I know. But I want to. I set the flowers down on the counter and walked toward him. You've been patient. You've been kind. You've given me space when I needed it and presence when I didn't know I needed it. And I've been thinking a lot about what I want. He was very still. And what do you want? I reached up and touched his face. His skin was warm under my fingers, and I felt him inhale rply. I want to stop being afraid, I said. I want to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I want to stop holding myself back because I'm scared of getting hurt again. Linnie, I know who I am now, I continued, keeping my voice steady. I'm not the girl who married the wrong man because she thought she couldn't do better. I'm not the daughter who spent her whole life trying to earn approval that was never coming. I'm not the victim who let other people write her story. I took a breath. I'm Lin Man. I build things. I design things. I create things that last. And I want to build something with you. He didn't move for a long moment. Then he reached up and covered my hand with his, pressing it against his cheek. You're sure? He asked. His voice was rough. I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me. It wasn't like in the movies. It wasn't perfect or choreographed. It was a little clumsy, a little desperate, the kind of kiss that came from 10 years of waiting and 6 months of refill patience. It tasted like salt and wine and something that felt like home. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine and let out a shaky laugh. I've wanted to do that for a decade, he said. I know. I smiled. I was there. You were always there. You just didn't see me. I see you now. He kissed me again, slower this time, and I let myself fall into it. I let myself feel the warmth of his arms around me, the steady beat of his heart against my chest, the certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The pasta burned. We didn't see 2 hours later, we were sitting on the floor of the penthouse, our backs against the couch, the remnants of a dinner that had gone very wrong scattered around us. The candles had burned down to stubs, and the city lights outside were bright and sparkling. I should have made reservations, I admitted. Your king was fine. The pasta was crunchy. Crunchy pasta is underrated. He leaned over and kissed my temple. I've had worse. Where'd law school? I survived on instant noodles for 3 years. I laughed. That's not the same thing. Trust me, your crunchy pasta was gourmet compared to that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. I leaned against his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around me. Shijo, I said, what happens now? Now, he looked down at me. Now we figure it out. Together. That's not a plan. It's not a plan, he agreed. But plans can change. We can change with them. I thought about that. About all the plans I'd made in my life, the ones that had fallen apart, the ones that had succeeded, the ones I'd had to scrap and rebuild from scratch. Plans were just intentions. The real thing was the person you had beside you. I want to show you something, I said. I got up and walked to the drafting table in the corner of the room. He followed, curious, and I pulled out a large sheet of paper. It was a blueprint. A new one. A penthouse design that I'd been working on in my spare time for the past 3 months. What is this? He asked. It's our penthouse, I said. Well, it's the design for it. I thought, if you wanted, we could build it together. A new place. A new start. He read at the blueprint. At the sweeping windows and the open concept layout and the rooftop garden that I'd marked with tiny drawings of flowers. Linnie, he said, his voice hushed. This is, I know we're not there yet. I know we're not even officially together, not really. But I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about the future. Our future. If that's okay. He turned to look at me. His eyes were bright, and I saw something raw and vulnerable in his expression. It's more than okay, he said. It's everything. Good. I smiled. Because I've already put down a deposit on the lot. You what? I bought a plot of land. I'm going to build something new. Something that's ours. I shrugged, trying to look casual. It was a good deal. The market's in a good place. He burst out laughing. It was the kind of laugh that came from deep in his chest, loud and ungué-ride, and it made me feel like I'd won something. Of course you did, he said. Of course you bought the land first. It's practical. It's insane. It's me. He pulled me close again, and I let myself be held. The blueprint was between us, pressed against his chest and mine, a promise of something that was still in the future. I love you, he said, and he RD the weight of it. All the years of silence, finally spoken out loud. I love you too, I said. I think I always did. I just didn't know how to say it. You're saying it now. I'm saying it now. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other in the quiet certainty of the moment. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed. Shizhou was in the guest room. We decided, fully and deliberately, that we weren't in a hurry. That we'd let things unfold naturally. But when I walked into the kitchen, he was already there, making coffee in my favorite mug. We ring one of my ridiculous aprons that had a cartoon cat on it. Morning, he said. Morning. I leaned against the doorway and watched him. You look ridiculous. I look charming. You look like a cat. He turned around, holding the coffee out to me. I'm okay with that. I took the mug and sipped. Perfect. A splash of milk. No sugar. You're staying? I asked. If I'm staying, he said. As long as you'll have me. I looked around the penthouse. At the candles still melted on every surface. At the burnt pasta in the kitchen. At the blueprint on the drafting table, a future waiting to be built. Good, I said. Because I have plans. Plans. I set the coffee down and picked up the blueprints from the table. The new building. The new life. The new everything. I was thinking we could do it together. He walked over and looked at the drawings. His hand found mine, and steadied together, he said, and the word felt like a promise that we spent the rest of the morning working on the design. Me drawing, him offering suggestions, arguing about window placements and light angles and the exact shade of green for the rooftop. You can't plant peonies on a rooftop, he said. They need deep soil. You can plant anything with the right infrastructure. The wind will destroy them. Then we'll build a wind barrier. You're impossible. You love me. I do, he said, and he said it like it was the easiest thing in the world. I really do. 3 months later, the new building was announced. It made the front page of the architecture section. Critics called it visionary, inspired, a masterpiece of modern design. I didn't see about the reviews. I read about the fact that I'd built it. Not with Chinshaw. Not with my parents. Not with anyone's permission or approval. Just me. And Shizhou. And the trust that we could build something that would last. The opening ceremony was small, just the team, a few investors, and my grandmother. She stood in the center of the rooftop garden, looking out at the city, and she looked proud. It's beautiful, she said. It's not finished yet, I said. There's still more to do. There's always more to do. She turned to me. But look at what you've already done. Look at what you've become. I looked out at the city. At the skyline that I'd helped shape, even in a small way. At the life I'd built from nothing. I had help, I said. Everyone does. She patted my arm. That's not a weakness. That's a strength. Shizhou walked up behind me and put his hand on my shoulder. I leaned back into him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. Ready for the speech, he asked. Almost. I looked at him, at the man who had waited 10 years, who had never stopped believing in me. Thank you. For what? For waiting. For staying. For being exactly who you are. He smiled. I wouldn't have wanted to be anyone else. I walked to the podium and looked out at the crowd. My team. My investors. My grandmother, sitting in the front row with a flower in her hair. Good evening, I said. Welcome to the opening of the new building. I designed it. I built it. And I did it on my own terms. The crowd applauded. I smiled, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Later that night, Shijo and I stood on the rooftop garden, looking out at the stars. The city hummed below us, alive and bright. What's next? He asked. I thought about it. About the future. About all the things I still wanted to build. The family, I said. I think I want a family. With you. He looked at me, and his eyes were soft. That's a big step. I know. But I'm ready for big steps. I turned to face him. You, he pulled me into his arms. I've been ready for 10 years. The kiss that followed was slow and sweet. Under the stars, on the rooftop garden we'd built together, I let myself believe in the future. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was ours. And that was enough. End of chapter 5. If you enjoyed Lin Man's journey from heartbreak to healing, from betrayal to triumph, don't miss the next story in this world. Subscribe to my author page for updates on new releases, bonus content, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. The best is yet to come, and I can't wait to share it with you. See you in the next chapter.